Stay tuned for Wrestling with Computers. Go get yourself something to write with and something to write on, because we're off to the world of technology and you're going to want to take notes. Welcome to Wrestling with Computers, the show where we talk about technology. And today we've got a very special guest, Gary Costin, from the business. He's the business administrator for the Plymouth school system. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for coming. You've been the school administrator for about 4 years now?
Correct, in Plymouth.
And you've got about 33 years of school business administration. Wow.
That's correct.
So you've seen a lot go on in the school system over the years.
A lot of changes over the past 34 years, correct.
Gary and I are on the Technology Council, and we're creating a technology plan. Can you just talk a little bit about what a technology plan is?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Many years ago, the Department of Education, when technology started to become an instructional tool, required school districts to develop 5-year technology plans. And the purpose really of the plan at that point was twofold. Number one was to qualify for what was called E-rate funding. That was a mandate for that federal funding. And the second was for school districts to have a vision and to put that into action and into a document so that the Department of Education could monitor how schools are progressing towards putting technology into the school classrooms for teaching. So now that plan has expired. We now have to do another plan, and that's what the council and good people like you have volunteered your time to put forth and develop that.
So talk a little bit, you said, we're doing it for a lot of different reasons. Why is technology important, and why is it important that we have, infrastructure and a plan in place? Talk a little bit about, how technology has evolved and why, it's so much more in the classroom now. Teaching has changed, and, how children learn and how technology is involved in the whole.
Sure. Boy, if I go back in time, you said there have been a lot of changes. I recall being back in the early 80s in my first school district, where the classrooms were using Apple IIe's and they were using Texas Instrument products for instruction. Commodore, those type of products. Yeah. And actually, you were buying those computers for the programs that they offered. They were somewhat proprietary, those programs, and you would have the old green screens, and at that time, I recall purchasing my first computer, IBM computer for the business office, which was an IBM XT, which I believe had 40 megabytes or 20 megabytes of hard drive to do the accounting. So we didn't even have that in the business office. So there was almost a segmentation of what was in the classroom and what was being used for management. Roll forward, technology, as you know now, is everywhere, and the technology plan, really, the importance of it is to give all of us in the school district. I mean, we have a large school district in Plymouth. We're the 10th largest school district in the state, to give us direction for a lot of purposes. It provides the teachers a direction and lets them know, in fact, what we plan on providing for them. For me, in the business office, it helps me build a budget for resources. It lets the public know what we intend to do, and it gives us some measurable goals and direction. The problem with the technology plan is that the state found out a 5-year plan is really too long. As you know, technology changes overnight. Right. So now we're doing 3-year plans. So that's what we're working on now, and it's extremely important that we all come together. As you know, we're working on the mission and the vision of where we want to be. There are a lot of different ideas of where you use technology in the schools, and really, that's not my specialty, but I can tell you that teachers look at them as tools, and they all teach different ways, and we try to provide instructional leadership for that, for teachers to use the products and to adapt to the way that they instruct the students.
We've got a I know it's not your purview, but we've got a lot of technology teachers who teach the teachers technology and how to get that technology in the classroom. A lot of my clients, one of their problems is that their kids know more than they do about technology, and I see a lot of, I see colleges where it's going to become, the bookstore is no longer going to be in a college. It's going to be, a lot of colleges right now, when you enter as a freshman, you're given, you have to pay for it, but you're given a computer from the university that has certain programs and certain things in place. Do you see that evolving, locally anywhere? I know it's a far stretch to see every student for one piece of technology, but do you see that evolving where, the actual devices are going to be in child's hands, students' hands more?
Yeah, yes, we do. It's ironic. Right now, when we talk about having a device, students that walk in the building right now have a computer. Most of them have, iPhones, cell phones,
Right.
And a lot of times they'll try to grab an IP address from our
Right.
system. We have many different kinds of devices in the school district. We have iPads, we have Chromebooks, which is something that we're looking at now. We have laptops for a lot of our administration and teachers, and we have some Mac products, which are, as you know, heavily for arts and video. And then we have a number of desktops. We have over 6,000 devices right now in the school system. When schools were built many years ago, as you know, it was computer labs. And then, because the computers, we kind of laugh now at the size of the computers, they can be used for moorings in some harbors. Then they evolved to putting 5 drops and a teacher drop in a classroom. And so that the teacher would be able to instruct a segment of the students, or let them go work on something in the back or on the side of the classroom. Now it's a matter of, we have carts, we have different devices where actually the students have those devices in hand and they're working on a lesson or a unit. You bring up a very good point though. What really is happening, I think what we see is, and even with the prices of technology, is that, for example, Chromebooks, they're starting to replace textbooks, and that's something that we really need to educate the public to get to the point where they understand that we're not really talking about a device so much as we're talking about something that's going to eventually replace textbooks. And we've always you spend maybe $110 on a textbook, you're spending $150 on a Chromebook, which can
Right.
have access to multiple things, as you know. So,
And do you, towards your purview, when you're budgeting and you're looking towards the future, and you're looking at one student, one device, that's going to be a really difficult budget process, because you're talking, right now we have, all the teachers have a Chromebook or a computer or something in the classroom, and you've got, I'm going to guesstimate, like 3 or 4 computers in the classroom for the students to be using during class time. I know that Plymouth North, when it was built, I was talking to a lot of the tech people who were involved in that, and how technologically advanced that whole school was. We've got the whiteboards and we've got everything else. It's got to be, looking towards the future, it's got to be hard to budget because of technology, because technology, like you said, is evolving. Every second there's something new, and it's, do you see a school system that has that ability to have more percentage for technology towards student? Do you see that in the future?
absolutely, and I think you'll see that when the tech plan is finalized. Plymouth has been very fortunate, I should say that, for the support from the community, to have two brand new high schools that are, state of the art, to use a common term. We're very fortunate. The students are very fortunate. They will be somewhat different. As you know, technology has changed. What we do see is that, for example, Plymouth North was built with a number of capacity for devices, for students, for access points,
Right.
and with the whiteboards, with the projectors, and the video system. You'll see probably something different at South. There'll probably be more interactive type of products as opposed to a projection system. And that will be determined. Plymouth North won't open for a few years. South, I'm sorry, that'll be determined down the line because technology, as you know, changes. So we have placeholders for that. What we have been working towards, and your point of budgeting, is that the other schools, the other remaining schools that we have, primarily the middle and the elementary schools, are very difficult to outfit for access points. We have some buildings that are, 100 years old. The infrastructure, correct. And for us, before we get to the point of one-to-one devices, or and we can certainly talk about that, we need to have the backbone of the infrastructure. And to outfit, say, Nathaniel Morton, which is a very large school, with concrete walls and other issues, the electrical supply you need to do to make that totally 100% capable is expensive, and it's very, very hard for us to budget for that. That's why this technology plan will be very important for us to give us direction. Do we start with the middle schools, work our way down? Do we start with other schools? Do we give hotspots, which we have in buildings now? So that's very important to have that direction for me for budgeting.
Yeah, and it's been interesting, listening to the teachers that are involved in the technology teachers and the teachers who are using it in their classroom, how involved and how willing they are to embrace this technology. And the word I heard, the phrase I heard a lot is preparing our learners for the 21st century, and making it so that when they get out there, because this technology is out there, it would be remiss if we're not teaching them to that level, so that when they leave, that they're capable of using this stuff. Can you talk a little bit about how we're integrating that technology into the school system? I know it's not your purview.
Sure. Well, I'm fortunate to have a great group of administrators that I work with and allow me to sit in on some of those meetings. But going back a little bit, it used to be that you were working and learning Windows, you were working Excel spreadsheets and those type of things.
Right.
Students are coming to school knowing a lot of that already.
Right.
They're just way advanced beyond where, certainly maybe 10 years ago. So what's happening is that we try to integrate technology where possible, where we have the resources, into every classroom. North obviously has some great technology. We did mirror that at South for and I do need to say that, for a temporary patch until South was built, so that there was equity. That equipment will be dismantled and moved and distributed, and that'll be probably part of our technology plan. Where are we going to put this equipment once South is built? But I'll give you an example too with South. When students come in, you will have students, for example, in the auto shop. You can't fix your car anymore, it's all computers.
Right.
They need to know certain things on the computer.
Right.
Marine tech, electrical, carpentry, they're using software programs. Anybody that watches HGTV, they're doing modeling. So those type of things, drafting, same thing. At North, we actually have a robotics lab where we have a 3D printer, I believe it's called, where it makes the models. It's amazing.
Incredible.
So students are having interactions with those devices. In the classroom itself, math, science, language arts, same type of thing. You'll bring in a bank of computers, a bank of Chromebooks, whether it's doing testing, whether it's doing polling of students. We have devices where if you want to make sure that you're teaching and the students are understanding, you're able to give a test on the monitor and everybody can respond, and you can see right away half of the class doesn't understand it, so I need to go over that prior to sending to going home with the homework.
Right.
So that's definitely what we're seeing. We're also seeing when students go home with homework, everybody pretty much has their devices at home. They're able to go on, teachers post lessons,
right,
and they're able to catch up or even get ahead on their work. So that's kind of what I see. As far as the instructional methodology, that's something that's really not my specialty.
Yeah, yeah.
But as I said, teachers, we do have integration technology specialists,
Right.
as you've noted, and they help the teachers because we all have different styles, how we learn and how we present. You're very polished, and I'm probably fumbling through how I'm saying some of this, but they adapt and they provide support for the teacher to be able to do their best job with the technology.
Which is interesting, and being a part of this council, it's been, I've known Dr. Maestes and his technology background, which is extremely helpful. And I've talked to, administrators and teachers, and they're saying, how it's great to have Dr. Maestes, whose background is technology, so you're not having to say, hey, we have to have this. He's saying, oh, you're getting this. We're going to find a way to get it done. And I think, but I noticed how embracing the teachers are, and how the school system as a whole is, technology's here. And you see a lot of like corporate atmospheres or other atmospheres where the technology isn't something they embrace because it's kicking and screaming that they're changing their technology. So let's get into your purview a little bit, because I know that there's no technology budget per se. And we're having, this technology plan is going to help you say, this is where we're going, this is where the future is. Talk a little bit about how, the difficulties of budgeting for technology and the future of where we're going.
Sure. We do not have, you're correct, money in the budget for technology, what we'll call refresh or replacement. What we do is we have what we call 2 cost centers in our budget. One of them is instructional technology, and that comprises salaries of all the instructional technology personnel and all software that we use, whether it's Windows or whatever device that whatever product that we use. And we also have technology hardware repair / maintenance in our budget. And probably not many people are aware of it. We have a facility that we rent up here on Long Pond Road, and we have a little bit of a warehouse, and we store a lot of parts, and we repair a lot of our computers because our technicians, we have 6 technicians in the district and a systems engineer, and they are licensed AP authorized warranty repair people.
Yep.
We repair a lot of our own equipment there, and we also receive deliveries. We process inventory. People can drop off their machines there, staff, and get a new machine. So we're very fortunate to have that ability. The difficulty comes in when we want to have an initiative to replace, upgrade technology computers. First thing is, as you know, we're trying to define what's the best way to use our resources. Where do we want to go? Where are we going to get the most input on the students right away? And that's the technology plan. What we had done in the past, as I said, we had put $250,000 in the budget over the last 3 years prior to this past year. That was to also access some matching funds through what was called an ARA grant, American the Recovery Reinvestment. And we were able to put almost $1.5 million in technology in South High School, which, as we said, will be reallocated.
Right.
That made it equitable to North when it opened, and we do a lot
that
of.
was a huge thing from students
Correct.
and teachers, is they're getting it, we're not.
Right. And we have coordinated curriculum so that North and South, the math classes really should be the same, what they're learning. So we were able to do that. Last year, because of budget reductions, we had to reduce our budget by the $250,000. And that's what happens a lot across the state. I see with colleagues is when you get down to it, the school budget does not have a lot of variable costs. A lot of it is fixed costs. And technology is one thing that usually gets cut. And in Plymouth, we've been very fortunate through capital. In the past, the capital outlay would buy a large amount of technology. But I think in where we're going, as you see with our conversations at the technology plan, is that computers are looked more on as, number one, almost being disposable after 4 or 5 years, and they're equivalent to almost a textbook. So we need to build something in our budget to constantly refresh and keep these initiatives going. So we've put $250,000 in. What we'll spend that on is yet to be determined, as you know, what the best method or course is. And it's not nearly enough, as you know. There's a lot of things we need to do. Prior to rolling out those devices, though, we need to do something with our infrastructure. That's really important.
Yeah, and talking with Alan, who's in charge of the technology.
He's our system engineer.
Yeah, and the infrastructure is because there's a lot of talk of cloud-based things and a lot of stuff that we can do, but looking towards the future with technology and when you're talking about technology, you have to look 5 years down the road and where you're going. And one of the things we talked about is, one device per student. With that, the infrastructure behind that is astronomical. It's a huge part of the plan. The infrastructure has got to be behind that. Like you said, when we're building a new school, part of that infrastructure is built in, but when you're talking about Nathaniel Morton, you're talking about a whole bunch of infrastructure that you're behind the concrete wall, literally and figuratively. So how do we forecast that? How do we look towards the future? What's our future look like? Where do we need to be?
Well, and that's what this committee will put together, that document, where we think we need to be in 3 years. I mean, there are people, skilled and experienced people like yourself on that committee. I see my role as more helping to find a way to get us there,
right.
And the resources, and to help prepare and present that to the community. So hopefully it's supported. And it's also a realistic number that can fit within the town budget. Definitely bandwidth is an issue because, as you know, we have more and more video,
right.
More and more demand on
huge.
the fiber, which Plymouth is very fortunate that we have our own fiber system.
Right.
But I do see that we will be working towards putting additional capabilities at our elementary and middle schools, so that when we decide to go to we call it a one-to-one, whether it's we supply it or students
BYO,
supply it,
yeah.
However that works, we have the capability for the staff and the students to do that. So I think that's where we're going to end up being in the next few years. The money to do that, we will look at any grants, any E-rate funding that's out there, the budget. But the problem with that, as you know, putting things behind the walls, like when you're building a house, people don't see it. You don't see
right.
what you've done, but yet it's there, and it needs to be there.
Right.
And prior to that, we need to do professional development along. That's going to be a big part of this for our teachers. As you noted, we have teachers that are very eager to get going and do things.
Right.
But before we hand a class of computers and make that investment, they need to feel comfortable with the technology and what they want to do with it. So it's a whole process, as you've mentioned.
Great. So, in your opinion, we're moving in the right direction. We're forecasting. We're doing a lot of planning so we can figure out the best place to put our money, and we got to work on infrastructure. Alan's told me the national average text to computers that were way low, which means that his guys are running, whenever they're but I think technology it's here, and I'm glad that the school system is embracing it and knowing that it's here and that it is something that we have to be involved in. And I want to thank you for coming. I think this has been great. We've got a lot of information about the school and technology. And thank you all for watching. And don't be afraid of technology. Thank my producer, Ken Bukes, for all that he does for the show. And keep using that computer and technology, and we'll see you next time.